That's right.
XtremeBrass.com is an interactive website for brass players and music educators alike. Brought to you by Wayne Downey of the Concord Blue Devils Drum and Bugle Corps.
So Wayne, tell me about ChopBuilders.
Oh, you mean XtremeRange Development ChopBuilders?
That's what I meant.
It's a long name. It's a long name. You know, boy, lead trumpet players, which I have had the pleasure of teaching many in the Blue Devils for years and years and years, have egos, immense egos.
What a surprise.
What a surprise, I know. And, you know, I guess really when I was growing up, one of my all-time heroes was Maynard Ferguson. And what did Maynard Ferguson bring to the table? Besides a vivacious performer, he brought an incredible, incredible range that people, it was awe-inspiring. It was just awe-inspiring. And he would take entire audiences and just make them go bananas based upon his complete control of the range, the upper tessiture of the instrument. And it's just something that after years of working with the Blue Devils, we have to develop it. You know, you have to take performers that play, you know, the lower trumpet parts and give them the skills and give them the techniques necessary to be able to play in that upper register.
Sure, hearing Maynard for the first time, or other players who could do that, who emulated him, for example, it was almost a religious experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Certainly soul-stirring. You'd say, I have to know how to do that. Tell me, show me.
Well, you know what legitimized it for me? I was up in Seattle doing a clinic someplace, and it was a Maynard Ferguson concert. And I went to the Maynard Ferguson concert. He was just on fire. And at the end of this one tune, before he even got to the end of it, he was up sizzling on this who knows what. It was like dogs were howling everywhere in the world. This one gentleman just popped up and started clapping and being completely out of control. And I said, wow, that's incredible. Who is that? Oh, that's the principal trumpet player from the Seattle Symphony. And I went, oh, I get this. So range is something, and even if it's a jazz sizzle, you know, is something that even the most professional of performers in any classic or symphonic situation is going to enjoy. And I said, okay, so this is something that's important to all performers in every style of music. You know, not only drum corps, not only jazz, but obviously incredible range control. And what I finally decided was that, okay, well, we have to not only teach the performers how to play in the upper register well, but also teach them how to play in the lower register well. And after many, many years of, you know, studying a lot of Claude Gordon's materials and understanding pedal tones and false tones, I started to completely mold my own approach to teaching range development. And that is, if you want to play the double C, you have to play the pedal C.
Right.
So you start in the middle of the instrument and you stretch both ways. And in the process of doing it, I've created a system where you have to coordinate certain physical functions, okay? What's most important is you have to be able to coordinate the lower abdominals, which control the pressure of the air and the speed of the air, with basically the aperture. Because the aperture really controls, the size of the aperture controls the speed of vibration. And we know that we have to have a fast speed of vibration if we're going to be sizzling in the upper register, and as well as the location of the aperture in the mouthpiece, so that air column can be finely tuned to the center of the throat of the mouthpiece itself. So I started working with different combinations of really creating a system of coordination. So you teach the muscle motion, which is very, very smooth and very, very fluid, but you understand how to move to and fro. So the larger the aperture size, the slower the vibration, the lower the pedal tones you're going to be able to play with the real slow vibration and just really, really focused well. And then the higher the vibration, the smaller the aperture size, the faster the vibration of the tissue that's vibrating to create that higher frequency of pitch. And it's being able to control through every octave, you know, the exact center of pitch and tone as you do this. That it's really the true art of being able to play in all registers.
So if we understand the theory, then what are some of the specific things that are actually in the book?
Well, first of all, as I mentioned earlier with some of my studying with Claude Gordon, there's a great deal of emphasis initially put on false tones and pedal tones. Because what false tones and pedal tones do is they force you to focus the center of your pitch and focus the center of your tone, especially when you're using false fingerings. Because sometimes the instrument doesn't want to play that note, and you have to learn how to center that note in the center of pitch and tone without the correct fingering. It creates this strength and this ability to focus really, really accurately, and as well as the pedal tones too. Because again, the instrument doesn't want to play those tones; they don't want to play them in tune. So there's a great deal initially of emphasis placed on false tones and pedal tones. The one thing that, in the process of it that I think is real important is you've got to understand the difference between performing and resting. Because that recuperation time between the exercises is so important. The rest is almost as important as the practice. You've got to be able to recuperate. You've got to be able to rest and recuperate. To understand exactly, to develop, the muscle tone. Because realize the way that you develop muscle tone and control of the musculature is through bringing blood, the nutrients that blood brings to the muscles so they can grow. So you've got to make sure you're always engorging the tissue and relaxing so the blood itself is flowing around the muscle so it will start to develop and it will start to tone the way you'd like to do it.
I think a lot of players don't realize that concept of rest, and they think if I just keep practicing this over and over and over again, I'll get better, and they find that they end up getting worse because they're actually destroying tissue.
Right, oh, absolutely. And the other thing that I stress in the book is this, that what's most important is the quality of sound, the characteristic quality of sound of the instrument you're playing. So at all times, even with the false tones, the pedal tones, the low register, the upper register, you always have to play with the characteristic quality of sound. It's imperative. So there's a great deal of focus on that initially. And then obviously, as I said, the exercises go from the mid-register to the low register to the mid-register, mid-high register, and it just expands slowly to the point that you are able to play 5 octaves with great care, great flexibility, great characteristic quality of sound and center of tone.
5, that's pretty good. So my assumption then is that this is kind of a specialized skill. Not everyone is ready to do this.
No.
Who is the book written for?
The book is really written for the intermediate to the advanced player. Because the beginning player is just learning how to create a tone. It's just trying to be able to hold a center of a pitch, a fine pitch and tone. So really, it's really for the intermediate to advanced player. Because again, a lot of what's initially demanded of the performers is pretty detailed and takes a good degree of technique to be able to perform some of the first exercises.
So it's something that all players would aspire to anyway in the long run.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just, again, not for the screeching trumpet players. If you want to have that, if you want to be a trombone soloist, and you want to saw in that upper register, that upper register sound on trombone.
J.J. Johnson, Frank Rosolino.
Oh, absolutely. And you have to have that ease of motion. Again, I call it the elasticity or the smoothness of the muscle motion, and understand how to balance the hand pressure and the mouthpiece pressure on the embouchure itself to be able to get that accurate vibration of the aperture, to get the correct airspeed and the speed of the vibration more than anything else, to get that great, beautiful sound in the upper register. It takes a lot of time.
Well, it sounds like you've done a great service to the folks that want to go in that direction.
Well, again, I was one of those egomaniac lead trumpet players myself,
Not you.
I don't know if I was as good as Manny Ferguson. I'm probably not even close. But it's something I think all players will benefit from.
Well, great. Well, thanks for elucidating all of that, and I know it's going to be a great benefit, this book, to
My
all
pleasure.
players.
My pleasure.
Go to extremebrass.com.